That's it. All right. Gentlemen, we ready? We lost Commissioner Colodi. Is he around somewhere?
He's around. He was just signing something. We should all be fighting for.
There he is. All right. Let's go. Okay. This special meeting of the City Commission from Monday, August 26th will come to order. Please silence your cell phone. City Clerk, if you would call the roll, please.
Mayor Owen.
Here.
Vice Mayor Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Commissioner Sachs.
Here.
Commissioner Colodi.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. First item up is public participation. 3-minute time limit will be imposed. And any members of the public wish to speak on anything related to this meeting, preferably. Seeing none. All right. I just realized the mistake. Okay, first item up is, we'll close public participation. First item up is charter review presentation by Lynn with the Florida League of Cities. We have all had the pleasure of meeting Lynn. Mike and I had the chance to sit in the classroom for three days, but I tell you what, it felt like 30 minutes. You made it lively and enjoyable. It was a great experience. Brought many of those lessons back here to the dais. Just kind of lay of the land. She's going to give a presentation. There's really no decisions that we have to make tonight. This is just kind of starting the process. Eventually, kind of the next steps in the process after tonight, Carrie will be providing us some initial ordinances. Kind of the key decision points we have are kind of size of the committee that will be involved, and there was one other one that's associated with me.
Facilitator.
Yeah, facilitator, which we've gone out to an RFP process. Only I think 2 have responded. So.
Correct. It wasn't a formal RFP.
Yeah.
I just solicited everyone possible.
But yeah, we've done every push we can to try to get facilitators. We wanted to get Lynn, but she can't do it because of her relationship with the city in a professional capacity via the Florida League of Cities, which we totally understand. But if you wanted to retire and do this,
I have thought about that.
All right, just throw that out there. Okay, so with that, I'll turn it over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, and city staff and residents as well. It's a pleasure to be here. The Florida League of Cities, first, let me just say, is the statewide voluntary association for the municipal governments in Florida. And I always like to provide that as background because we have folks that don't know what the league is. In a couple of years, we'll be celebrating our 100th anniversary, and we are very blessed to have 99% of the municipal governments as members. We had our annual conference 2 weeks ago in Orlando, and Carrie and I had talked about a good date to come over and do this, and provided that it was after conference, we were very excited. So I do get to travel around the state doing this particular kind of workshop in my position as director of FLC University. My caveat for FLC University is it's the league training program. I cannot issue a 4-year degree. I do not have a football team, and I don't have a mascot. However, maybe those things will get added with time, but not right now. So in any event, we are based in Orlando. Shwanda Barnett, our specialist, is here with me. And this is one of the things I really enjoy about going around the state is getting to know every city and its own unique, wonderful charter. So there'll be a little bit of history and background in tonight's presentation. I'll go through it pretty quickly. Feel free to stop me with questions, and then I'll be happy to answer questions at the end as well.
She's being very modest on her. She's a charter aficionado. I mean, I think you can quiz her on. Her staff brags they quiz her on random charters, and she can quote most of them across the state. It's really, really fascinating.
You can tell I don't have much of a life, therefore, and that if this is what I'm doing in my spare time is reading city charters. Clearly, I either need help or I need a hobby, one or the other. I need to come over here and do some more time at the beach is what I think I need. So, all right, I need to make sure that this is on. There we go. So every municipality in Florida has a charter, and from the Latin, charter means contract. What we talk about with municipal charters is that they're the ultimate social contract in which we, the people, say that we agree to be self-governed. In Florida, because municipalities are a voluntary level of government, it's even that much more special because every inch of Florida is in a county, every inch of Florida is in a school district, every inch of Florida is in at least one special district because we all live in a water management district, but you have to choose to live inside a municipality. It requires an action. It means you've made a commitment. For a lot of folks, sometimes, though, it happens accidentally. They fall in love with a house or a business location, pick that, and then find out that they're within a city limits. Nonetheless, once you've made that commitment to that optional level of government, you're part of the self-governing. And we'd love to be able to say that every citizen understands their charter and knows it, but that's not true. In fact, one of the things we don't ask at the weekend training class you mentioned that we nickname EMO is how many people read the charter before they run, because we often get them at the EMO weekend indicating they've not read the charter and would like to get a copy of it. So that's always one of those things we encourage folks know before they run, but sometimes it doesn't happen that way. Prior to websites, it was a hard thing to get a hold of. A city didn't have 1,000 copies. They certainly didn't mail it out to everybody. But in this day and age, most cities post their charters on the website. And for everybody's knowledge, the charter is about the first 8 to 10 pages of that much bigger ordinance book. The charter is not the whole thing. The charter is a constitution. Now, in some states, charters are only granted to what are called larger, by either population or by scope of service, governments. In some states, they can only be granted through the state legislature. So in Florida, to be clear, not only does every city have it as an instrument from their people, it's required in the state constitution that you have a charter. And the other requirement in every city's charter in Florida is that your legislative body be elected, whether that's a council or a commission. You're free to use. We have a couple of cities that call it a board of trustees. We have cities that use the term alderman, and we have one city that uses the term superintendents. So whatever you pick for that legislative body, it has to be elected. Beyond that, with home rule authority through Article 8 of the Florida Constitution, it's up to every city to have their own unique special charter, which is wonderful. They're not one size fits all. Now, in early Florida, these charters did get granted through the state legislature. Home rule didn't go into effect, as most of you know, until 1968. And the special act charters then had to be updated with a phrase that didn't say take it back to the legislature for amendment, but instead talked about taking the things to the voters and it being solely that instrument for every city to do its own self-governance. No two charters in Florida are the same. Other than the titles and the preambles, which are the poetic part, the minute you get into the articles, they all start to get very, very different. So I kind of want to run through some common characteristics. Then we'll talk about New Smyrna Beach specifically and what a charter review process includes and involves. The fact that they're broad, a city's details are in their ordinances, their resolutions, and their adopted policies. Just as in the U.S. Constitution, you don't want to put things in, and these are actual examples, your meeting date and time doesn't go in the charter. A dress code for the city council does not go in the charter. And one city that did that when they elected their first woman and she came in without a tie, her first question to the attorney is, I'm in violation of the city charter. And while it seems silly, no one wants that level of detail in the charter. Similarly, things that are expected to be readily amended based upon demands are usually better put in an ordinance than they are in the charter. And even though charter might reference that something in broad nature is an element of that city and important, it will specify in the charter that that is to be adopted by the city council either regularly or routinely by ordinance. And so that gives the framework and the responsibility of something in the charter, and it gives it a permanent place, but the details of it are then flexible for the city because you need to be able to adapt. With 2 public hearings, you can amend an ordinance. Without a vote of the people, you can't amend your charter. And so where you need that flexibility, it's up to you and your citizens to craft that flexibility. So you want to think of your charter much like the blueprint of a house. What are your big, strong beams for construction? What's your framework? And then leave the details in the law, the regular ordinances. One of the things that every city has to do in their charter is explain the legislative body and how it will be elected. Not something like the qualifying date, right? But how are you going to be elected? What are the terms that you'll serve? What will be the city's form of government? What will be the chain of command? And then the rest of the detail part of that is then said usually within the charter. This will then be updated and adopted by ordinance. The charters, for the most part, 8 to 10 pages in length. That's without your metes and bounds description, which for some cities is a very thick document, depending on their size. Nowadays, it's not as critical that that metes and bounds description be verbatim in a charter. It can also be referenced by ordinance, for example, so that you stay up to date on things like an annexation. Now, how do charters get amended? How do they get written in the first place? That's the role of a charter review committee. The council or the commission always has the ability to propose amendments to a charter. When a charter's first written, it's normally a group of citizens who get together and write the draft. Once the municipality's incorporated, that is then adopted by the voters, and that's your first charter, nicknamed your starter charter. Because of course, that just makes it more fun. So with your starter charter then, maybe in a period of 10 to 20 years, a citizens group would again be called upon to do a charter review. Is there anything we need to tweak? Sometimes new cities will actually put that in at about the 5-year mark because they're concerned that maybe they didn't line the elections up right. Maybe they left something too vague and they want to come back with amendments. We have had cities that don't do charter reviews for decades at a time. Some cities deliberately build into their charter a specific charter review period. It's your choice. It's the choice of your citizens. How often do they want to come back and look at this broad constitution? For example, if you put in that every 15 years there will be a charter review, then it would be up to that sitting commission to look at the timetable, get it onto the calendar, process it, and make it happen. Some cities prefer the phrase, a charter review committee can be set up upon request of citizens or the commission or council. And then that leaves you the option to hold it whenever you like. And there's no right or wrong in this. It's what fits best for your city. But assuming that it's read that it's your city's time to do a charter review, the first thing you have to do is appoint the committee. It's usually made up of people who are a broad cross-representation of your community. You're looking for diversity, and diversity across all spectrums. How long have they lived here? Do they own a business here? Did they retire here? Are they a native, non-native? You're going to want a good mix. You're also possibly going to want to look at some of the folks you consider to be community leaders because you know they'd be very good at the meeting process and at the deliberation process. These need to be folks you know. So if I were to make up just an example, there are 5 of you. If you each appointed 2, you'd have a committee of 10, which means tie votes. So someone needs to name that additional person to get you to 11. Or if you all appointed 3, you'd have a committee of 15, which is a fairly common size. We always obviously look for the odd number. Larger than 15, however, you're looking at trying to herd cats. Because as you know, most committees for 15, the first thing they can't do is find a date to meet, right? So be wary that anywhere between that 11 and 15, some people consider 13 an unlucky number, but 13 can be a good committee size, okay? It's the issue of how often do you then want them to meet and what kind of a timetable are you going to give them? Do you want this done backed into an election date? For example, if you looked at the November of 2020 ballot as an opportunity, or if there were spring elections and you wanted to time it to spring elections, as you back into that process, most charter review committees are 9 to 12 months in their tenure. Shorter than that, and it can look like a rush job. If you have a group that only meets for 4 to 6 months, what was the rush? Why did you have to hurry? And maybe there was a genuine emergency for some cities, but that's usually not a full charter review. That's a very specific amendment. If you're really looking at studying this document in its entirety, giving something a year to even 18 months is usually more common. If you limit the scope of the review to some specific areas, then you can shorten the timetable with confidence. Shortening a full review, however, can make the public question, what's the rush? And because you want the citizens fully engaged, not just in the committee and the committee's work, but once it comes back to you for review, you've got to control that timetable, and you've got to make sure that that calendar allows for ample opportunities to do that. So that's one of the cautions over the years that has really developed is take your potential election date, try to back into it with that right scope in time to make sure you're going to get a process you can be proud of. Nobody wants to, be told at the end of it, boy, I wish we'd had 3 more months, or, we could have had 1 more public hearing or something like that. The committee, usually, as a committee of yours, obviously it's bound by sunshine, by open meetings and by open records. It helps to have your attorney review that with them at their orientation meeting. This PowerPoint can be shared with a committee upon appointment. I kind of designed it that way after talking with your attorney so that it's something that could be shared with them for discussion purposes. Your choice in terms of your charter with whatever the committee recommends. Some cities have it where the Charter Review Committee can have direct ballot access. However, legally, that's usually less common than having it come back to you, the commission, so that you can then study what you believe is most appropriate with your attorney, fully vetting it, and then make the decision if there are 1, 2, or more amendments that you want to put on to the ballot. So that's the more common, is for it to come back to you. That makes the scope of the committee's work a recommending body to you, the city council, city commission. The citizen role in this is very critical in that you would encourage citizens to attend the committee meetings. Members of the committee can maybe go and speak at something like a Kiwanis or a Rotary or an Elks or a civic organization alongside members of the commission. You don't want to have multiple members of the commission, et cetera, and the committee, obviously, there's those concerns. But you want the public fully engaged throughout the year. Your website can be a tremendous help, and I've got other best practices that we'll talk about. But be thinking as you go through this, how can we make sure our citizens are not just engaged at the beginning, but engaged throughout? Because this doesn't happen every day. So the most common charter elements are here on this particular slide. I won't read it to you, but that's what we usually see if you were looking just at the table of contents. They're not always in this order because it depends on the individual city. They might have wanted to put something in a different order, but this is fairly common. So the legislative body itself, council is the word we brought over from Great Britain. A number of cities, however, chose commission because it is gender neutral. And as a result, you guys as a commission, it makes it easier to just say commissioner, and we don't have to worry about the cumbersome terms of like Madam Councilman, depending on your charter. The sizes. One of the first elements that gets asked to a charter review committee is whether or not the size of the council is truly reflective of the city today. You know what you were when you created. What have you been through the decades? What's your size now? Can you see this size going forward, or do you see a change in the size? Representative bodies can be elected in a number of ways. That's the other part of the conversation. It's not just the size, but how should you be elected? In smaller cities in Florida, true at-large is the most common. It doesn't matter where you live, and everybody votes for you. The danger with that is always pointed out, your entire city commission could live on the same street, including your mayor. Does that happen? Yes, in those cities that we have that are incorporated condos. Sometimes they live in the same building. Okay, so what are you looking for when you're looking for true representation? This gets into the other 2 ways that we elect, which is single-member district, or what's called a seated commission, which would be that you live in a prescribed area, but you are elected at large. Some cities do a combination of true at large and single-member district on the same council. Your neighbors to the north in Daytona Beach, for example, have districts as well as at-large seats beyond just the seat of the mayor. That way they've combined their 7 seats, and it gives them both. Some cities like that a lot. Some cities prefer to have the seat with everybody voting for you so that you get a good cross-population. There are pros and cons to each one of these. What your charter review committee would discuss is what's the best fit for your city. Either your status quo or one of the other options. And when we talk about side-by-side charter comparisons, that's one of the first things that they look at. When we look at some peer cities for New Smyrna Beach, what do their charters include and what would be the best fit for you? And it can be that the status quo is the right fit for you, but it's great when a citizens committee comes back with that recognition and it's not you, the council, arriving at that conclusion. The terms themselves. Florida is about 25% on the 2-year and the 4-year, and then it's about 33% on the 2-year and the 4-year, and a smaller percentage has the compromise, the 3. 2 is too few, 4 is too many, let's go for 3-year terms. The problem with the 3-year term is it makes your elections run in odd-numbered years. There's no way to avoid it, and then your city has to bear the cost of that election. However, some cities prefer it. They get the ballot to themselves. So they love that process. The question is what's right for you and your voting population. But we're the split in the 2 and the 4 with the 3. For Florida, we're pretty unique. Some states only allow their cities to have a set number. With home rule, we get quite a bit of variety. So I've mentioned the ways you can be elected. Where the 6s and the 8s come in on the size of the council is a non-voting mayor. Many of these cities evolved into that, where the mayor had been full-time and an elected executive, and then in changing their form of government, they left the number of seats, but then it meant that the mayor maybe would only vote in the event of a tie, but is otherwise non-voting. The largest city council in Florida is Jacksonville's, and it's 19, and we don't recommend that number because that's, again, a small legislature. But the next time you look at your 5, just know that there are 7s out there. There's a couple of 8s. We've got a city with 9, and we actually have a handful of cities with 3. That's the smallest. And that works really well when your population's only 8, by the way, which is Weeki Wachee. So 8 people and 3 serve on the city council. So if you're ever on Jeopardy, that and Marineland are 2 smallest cities. If your population were only 5 and all of you had to be on the city council, which Marineland had for a number of years, it means every single citizen is also on the city council. There are 3 ways, by the way, to select a mayor in municipal government within Florida. You can directly elect the mayor. You can elect the mayor from within the council to 1-year terms. They can be repeated 1-year terms, but every year an election is held for the mayor. And you can rotate, in which case each person serves a year until their terms require it to go back to whatever the next seat is. Up to about the 50,000 mark in population. 50,000 is big for a Florida city. But up to that point, you get a good mix of all 3. 50,000 in population and larger, you only see directly elected mayors. The last 2 rotational cities are Sarasota and Margate at about 50,000. And they still do the rotation. But beyond 50,000, it's directly elected mayors. And for some folks, remember, you bring your local government experience with you from whatever states you've lived in. Most people are used to a directly elected mayor when they think of big cities. However, in smaller cities, having the rotational mayor is what they've always known. It was your turn this year, maybe next year it'll be their turn, and et cetera. It's a shared leadership role as opposed to running for a set seat. So your Charter Review Committee would want to have a healthy discussion on this, whether they consider this an element for change or just to do it for comparison's sake. For everybody else's benefit, the median city this year in Florida is 5,800. So at almost 27,000, New Smyrna Beach is a larger city, even though it may not to you feel like a larger city. But in Florida, 60% of our cities have a population of 5,000 or 10,000 or less. So we're a state of mostly small cities. All right, the forms of government. I realize this print is small, but I know that Kelly has copies to share if anybody needed it. When we talk about the mayor-council forms, these are forms that do not have a central administrative position. There is no manager. In these, either the council does everything collectively, which is the system we brought over from Great Britain, in which all department directors report directly to the full council. The mayor is ceremonial, and as we often joke, holds the gavel, cuts the ribbon, kisses the babies. That's it. Okay? The council collectively hires and fires the directors, and then the directors may or may not be empowered to do the hiring within their departments or divisions. In some cities, the mayor and council have to approve the hiring of any employee, and especially in smaller cities you can find that. But in larger cities, that's not necessarily the case. When we say the words weak and strong mayor, we are not talking about the mayor's personality. We are talking about the charter. What does the charter say the mayor can do? In a weak mayor government, the mayor has no power other than as part of the council. In a strong mayor government, the mayor is the elected executive and may be given a full-time, by charter, designation. There may be pay. There may be staff that only that mayor hires. That mayor usually prepares items for the council's agenda and is not a voting member of the council. There are a couple of exceptions to that in Florida where the mayor is both the elected executive and a voting member of the committee, but 2 out of the about 45 to 48 with that form of government is a very minor exception to that. So when you think of Jacksonville, West Palm Beach, Tampa, St. Petersburg, those elected mayors are elected executives and do not vote with the legislative body. Orlando is the large city that is the exception to that. This mayor usually prepares material, hires and fires all staff, and is administratively responsible for the city on a day-to-day basis. The number breakout that you see with each one is fairly current. We do an annual survey every year of all of the cities, and that helps us stay up to date with charter changes and changes in form of government. The commission form is largely gone from Florida. This was Gotham. It's my Batman story. And you had a police commissioner, a fire commissioner, a roads commissioner, a drainage commissioner, streets commissioner, etc., sometimes wearing 3 to 4 of those hats at once. The commissioners run those departments. The mayor runs the meetings. And how do you do that when you're part-time? Which is why this form of government has largely gone away. We have 2 that have this by charter in Florida. However, neither of the 2 operates with this form. By ordinance, they have adopted other forms. They've just not updated their charters. So technically, this one is gone from Florida, but I mention it simply because it was a large part of our history. At one time, 100 cities had this form of government in Florida. So that leaves the council manager form, which is the most prevalent in the United States. It is also the most prevalent in Florida, and it's about 280 out of the 412. The council, with the mayor, appoints a manager. That manager serves at the pleasure of the council, might have a contract, might not, might just have a letter of agreement with benefits stipulated, and that manager is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the city. Since that is your current form, I'll answer questions if you have any, but I assume you don't need to know that much more about it. But that's statistically where we break out in Florida, is with those percentages. Now, the hybrid. We do have a couple of cities that did sort of a grab bag, where they took certain elements of each of the forms to put them into their charter. The largest of these is Bradenton. It has both strong and weak mayor characteristics. It has the city clerk serving in an administrative capacity by ordinance, but not by charter. And they called me a couple weeks ago, and they're ready to do a charter review. It's been about 40 years since their last charter review, and they want to take a look at forms of government. So interestingly enough, my largest hybrid may be starting a charter review process. By the way, we think one of the records for not having a charter review may go to Tampa. It appeared that when they did theirs 2 years ago, they had not done it in over 60 years.
Wow.
So they had a lot of things to update, namely the provision for home rule that had occurred in that gap of time. All right, so we do have a handful of hybrids. If you try to add up the 4 numbers I gave you, you will not get to 412, because some just don't fit in a category, and that doesn't matter. Every charter is unique and on its own, as are forms of government. However, political scientists like to count them, and so we try, but they're not exact. For your comparisons, I looked within not just population, but I also looked for coastal, urban, and suburban characteristics, and I picked 20 cities within what you see is basically 23,000 and a little bit to just over 34,000. From that, I think there may be some good peer city comparisons for your charter review committee to sit and do a side-by-side pages of the charter type of a review. It gives them the opportunity to say, oh, well, that city's coastal. They have tourist and seasonal populations like we get. They have a similar scope of services, which is a very critical point. Cities with police and fire should not compare themselves to cities that do not have police and fire. Cities with utilities often have a difficult time being compared to cities without utilities. What's your scope of service? How can you best compare yourselves to similar cities? That's how we get to the peer. And our research team that we were talking about, Mayor, We can help you find your peer cities, and with the list that I've provided, there are several in there that might be a good place for your committee to begin. The sizes of the councils, there were 12 with 5, 1 with 6, and 6 that had 7, so it's a pretty interesting mix. And for the forms of government, there were the majority council manager and 1 council strong mayor, which is Hialeah Gardens down in Miami-Dade County. So again, I know that chart is small, but if anybody needed to see it, it's both available digitally, and if you printed it out, it would be easier to. But that, from that list, if you look at the ones that are coastal, the ones with similar scopes of service, that'd be a good place to begin in that side-by-side comparison. And there is a wonderful online library of most of the city charters, so this isn't a difficult task. In the old days, you had to write each city or call each city, ask for their charter. Nowadays, that's much easier to do. Some of the best practices. Finding really good citizens who want to be part of this committee. Some cities like to look at their advisory board chairs or past chairs. Sometimes a former elected official who no longer has an interest in running is a good candidate. And the reason I stress not running again, it can look very self-serving to be part of the body that's reviewing your charter, which is why a council or a commission always appoints a citizen group. So if you put somebody on it who's also a candidate, really can be problematic. And I can say that from the league in that it's the sense of us looking at it historically, okay? The other part of picking a former elected official is they understand the public meeting process and they won't get flummoxed by it. Sometimes it's really tough to put someone who's never served on a public committee into this mix and have them struggle not just with open records, but with open meetings law and the whole gag order of not talking about this when you're not in a meeting. That can be really hard on people. So think long and hard about who you'd want your candidates to be, ideally, with a good cross-section that represents New Smyrna Beach well. Finding your forums for discussion. Obviously, you do a lot of things here at City Hall because it's so accessible. But if there were an opportunity to be, for example, at one of your community centers in order to better engage your citizenry, maybe it follows, one of the committee meetings follows a meet and greet where citizens can come in and just ask general questions related to the charter and why it's your governing document. There are cities who have found some really creative ways to engage the public, and I can encourage you to look at some of those so that you make sure not just the representative body is doing its work, but that your citizens stay heavily engaged in the process. The use of your website, stressing a lot, the minutes, the charter itself, a frequently asked questions guide, like why are we doing this now? You know, what's the role of the committee? How did people get appointed to the committee? So that it's all right there and easy for them. If staff helps in preparing that and keeps it up to date, your charter review process goes very smoothly. If you do end up with a referendum, having additional material on the website's also very helpful. You cannot tell folks how to vote, of course, but in the nature of the charter section currently reads A, we're proposing B, here are the arguments the committee developed in response to this, right? And it lists them out. Copies of the minutes, things like that, that really help with that public education part of the process. Most people walking into a ballot aren't going to understand what they're voting on unless you have everything readily available for them. And get out on the road and do the civic engagement as well when it's time for the questions to be on the ballot. If you've got a League of Women Voters or a civic organization in your community, ask them to host one of the public information sessions. It always looks great to have a partner, and it helps when it's someone else shining the spotlight on the city's charter and not just the city doing it as well. A number of different civic organizations would love to be the host for that. You just need to make sure you've built that time into the calendar so that there's plenty of opportunity for the public to have that discussion forum. Things to avoid that I've seen in my almost 30 years of getting to work on city charters. Lately, the biggest issue has been putting identical powers under two positions. I don't think it was done intentionally. It got done over time, and then the conflict is that they both have the powers in writing in the charter who prevails. And these cities that I'm mentioning are in the process of doing charter reviews and going back to the ballot now because they realize they can't operate that way. And unfortunately, the powers were such that it isn't something that can be fixed except through referenda. Less is more when it comes to your charter. An 8 to 10 page charter is plenty long. Putting more and more things into it that can be done instead by ordinance, that's one of the ways that we see. The attorneys are always telling me less is more. The more you say, the more trouble you get in, less is more. So I'm repeating their advice. And the elections section. One of the questions that's come up lately is that in trying to explain qualifying too detailed in the charter, you run up against changes not only in state election law, but your county's own supervisor of elections processes. And that's what's going to prevail in state law. You don't want your charter to be out of step. So being able to say this will be referenced by ordinance and then keeping your ordinance always up to date with regard to qualifying deadlines. We've had a couple of cities get in trouble with things that were in their charter, which to the city looked carved in stone, but were actually then in violation of state election law. So that's where you're going to want your charter review committee to understand and work very closely with your city attorney on making sure that the right amount is in there so that a person understands how to run for city commission and how to qualify, but that beyond that, it's in an ordinance that can be regularly updated. Those are some of the bigger problem areas that we've run across. There aren't a lot of stumbling blocks, really. These are about what I've seen the most in my almost 3 decades. I'm usually asked this question, so I thought I'd go ahead and address it. Are there any trends? And since the 1950s, for form of government, the trend has been toward council manager, largely because of the complexity of government on a day-to-day basis. I usually hold up a glass, but the bottle of water will do. How many of you know how many parts per billion of cryptosporidium can be in your city drinking water? Hiring professional staff can help when there's that level of complexity is there. In the 1800s, city services were much more simplistic. Many of the council people, if they were farming, for example, they had the time to be at City Hall quite a bit. Many of you have full-time jobs. You're at City Hall in a part-time capacity. What do your citizens feel is the right role for the council? What do your citizens expect of their elected body? What do they expect of the form? That's really what you want to drive your study committee back to. The Charter Review Committee is your repository for all those great conversations. 7 to 10, 10 to 15. For the newer cities, the reason the lower end of that number, as I mentioned, it's going back in and tweaking your starter charter. I see in older cities much more of the 10 to the 20-year time frame. Some of the questions to consider, and the Model City Charter I'm going to hold up. My dog-eared copy has actually lost its back cover, and my pages are all coming loose. It's time for me to buy a new one. But the Model City Charter is put out by a group called the National Civic League, not to be confused with the National League of Cities. The National Civic League is based in Denver, Colorado today. Originally, they came out of New York City. This was the group that took on Tammany Hall. And on their first committee was a young police commissioner named Teddy Roosevelt. And what he wanted was a model to follow because the city of New York's governing documents were so secretive and the meetings could be held without any public engagement that he wanted to try and put an end to that. Out of it came the first model charter over 100 years ago, and it put out the common preambles. It put in an amendatory process that includes petition by citizens, which was the first of its kind to not say everything goes through the council. And those types of reforms have led to this being a pretty handy resource. It's in its 8th edition now. About every 12 to 15 years, they update it or tweak it. Folks that serve on it and come from a broad cross-section. And this is the group, you may be familiar, they award the All-American City. And they also have a number of other great civic engagement projects that they sponsor and work on. But the Model City Charter is one of their best sellers. And it's a copywritten book. We don't make copies of it and share it. You can order one for your city and share it with your Charter Review Committee. For this specific reason, it poses great questions. Please, and I'm going to say it again, please do not use their language. The language in the Model City Charter does not conform to Florida law. But it gives people something to read and compare, number one. Number two, it poses questions like, is the size of our council appropriate for our population? if we think our population's going to grow by X amount in the next 20 years, does this size council still work? And that way, the committee doesn't have to search for the questions to ask. It's a handy guide. In addition to the book itself, they also sell a guide for charter review committees, which is a book full of little worksheets for them to be able to kind of self-score and work through the charter review process. I don't think they make much money off these books. They're very reasonable. This book's $15 plus postage, but I recommend it in the sense that it's one of the only guides that's out there, and it's one of the only models around. So apart from a side-by-side comparison with another city, this is just a good thing to have around as a reference guide. In it, one of the questions that they posed for 2008, I've listed a couple of them there. And those are things that they're currently debating within their own association, the issue of professionalism among staff. How do you measure it? How do you plan for accountability? Those are the kinds of things. Now, not all of that would get built into a charter, but it gets built into the representative model that you're building, and it's a great conversation for a citizens group to be having. Okay, let's see. Here's how you order the Model City Charter. As I said, it's not an online book. You actually have to order it from them. The Municipal Code, MuniCode Library, has the largest number of codified charters in the state of Florida. Looking at charters is free. There is a fee for ordinances. That's how MuniCode makes its money. And so I spend a lot of time in that MuniCode library, and if a city's charter isn't there, then I go to the city's website, and I can usually download it. It's only in our very smallest cities with populations under 500 that I sometimes can't find a charter, and I have to drop by City Hall and pick one up when I'm on the road. Our research team, as I mentioned, can help with that peer city comparison. If you weren't sure by scope of service whether one of the cities on that list of 20 that I gave you is a good match for you, let us help. That's our Tallahassee office, and they'd be more than happy to assist. Leanne, who works for Chris, that's her job, is helping cities do their peer city comparisons, among other things. So, I know I talked fast. Hit me with your questions, please.
All right, thank you so much. A lot of great information. Again, I encourage you to retire and come do this for us, but I guess that's an option. So
Not this year, but maybe in the future.
maybe by our next charter. All right, questions for Lynn. Go ahead.
After the committee reviews everything, makes recommendations, it would come back to this body here.
Yes.
What would the approximate time frame, how much time would be necessary from then to get it on a ballot?
That all depends on how often you meet, because we have cities that only meet once a month, twice a month, or every week. Your workload is going through whatever those recommendations are. For some cities, that's a 2-month period because they meet often enough to do it. For other cities, they need more like 3 to 4 months because they don't meet as often. So the question is, how much time can you commit to it? Normally, the review is done in workshops, obviously meetings where you don't intend to take an action, right, in the workshop type of format, and then you're making questions of staff, including your attorney, for either additional information, for clarification, for some sample language, whatever that might be. Then it gets brought back to you in more of a finalized draft format. I'd say anywhere, could be 2 to 4, maybe on the long side 5 months for you to get it ready for the ballot. The other is you have to back into the deadlines with your supervisor of elections as well to make sure that you have enough time in that for your workflow. You might be able to get it done. If there aren't a substantial number of changes that are proposed, you might be able to get it done in 2 or 3 meetings.
Okay, I'm more interested in, we'll meet at the drop of a hat here,
Okay.
which we do, is the time from when we decide what we want to do. How much time do we need to get it on the ballot?
Okay, that will depend on your supervisor of elections from the legal perspective. What you also want to build into that, Commissioner, is your public education period.
Right.
Less than a month would be terribly problematic because you're not going to be able to get out on the street enough to discuss it. I would be looking at least at a 2-month window for that, or longer, to be able to really get the word out on what the proposed changes are going to be. So your supervisor of elections would back you into the date. You want to make sure you've built in at least 2, maybe even 3. The other thing is seasonally. Is it the time of year that most of your citizens are here? in terms of when you're backing into the ballot, as opposed to trying to do this ahead of everybody's summer vacations or something like that. You want to make sure you've really looked at the calendar thoroughly that way.
Right, because where we sit, it's really hard to tell when anybody's here or not, with all the seasonal people that are coming in.
Exactly.
So we're talking about after the committee meets, we need a couple months to go over and at least a couple months to get it on the ballot and on the agenda. So we're looking for 6 months after the committee meets.
If you need that much time, if you were to do this as a year and the committee met, for example, 6 to 7 months, gave you their recommendations, could you get the work done in a month to 6 weeks and have 2 full months of public education? That might be a year's plan. I'm not saying that's carved in stone, but that's how I could view looking at it as a year. I've seen cities instead do it in 18 months, where they have that 3 to 4 month window of public education, and the committee met for a year prior. But that was a substantial charter review of every single article. Again, you will give the purview of this charter review to your committee. Are they reviewing all articles? Only a few articles? That's your choice. So if it's a full charter review, you do want to make sure you've given them enough time, and less than a year makes it tight.
Okay. Once they make the recommendations, we don't have to follow them, do we?
No, not
Okay.
unless your charter requires that you give them direct ballot access. It's your choice as the deliberative body that's elected to be the representatives of the people to determine what would go forward from the recommendations. And I say unless there's a caveat, because I haven't read every page of your charter, and I don't know if you have that stipulation.
Okay, very good, very helpful to me. Now I have a dumb question. Council manager, form of government, commission manager, form of government.
But the name of
what's
the
the difference?
legislative body comes first, right? There's no city manager form of government. It's either commission manager or council manager. You guys are a commission. Your charter likely says you are a commission manager form of government.
There's just no.
In the real
It's
world,
nomenclature. In the real world, the problem is council wasn't gender neutral. So the profession calls it the council manager form of government, but more and more cities have gone to commissioner because then they don't have to fight with what to call the people whose charter are not identified as a council man. Now, some cities have gone to council member, making it easier, but they are the same form. The elected body's name always goes first.
Okay.
good. I always had a problem because I served elsewhere and I was on a council.
Right.
And my wife is constantly telling me, you're a commissioner.
You're a commissioner.
And
Yep.
now I can tell her they're the same thing,
All right. Quick,
except in name only.
quick time check. We probably got 10, 12 more minutes. We got a little buffer on that, but we got trying to have a little break before we got another series of meetings. One question I had on my fellow commissioners think maybe they may have. So as I'm thinking of the process when we review kind of our standard ordinances, and you go through and there's Scrivener errors, there's a typo, there's a, hey, we'd love to just kind of tighten that language up here and there, and then there's there's the real reason you kind of
The
dug into
substantive.
it, there's the substantive change. Is there a process that you don't want to put, we changed an A to an and on a ballot. Is there a process for the substantive material changes versus clarity type changes, and who makes that determination?
It really comes down to the language in your charter. If it specifies that there can be clerical and administrative updates done without a vote of the populace, then you're free to do that. If, however, it states that every word of this charter has to go to the voters, then most of the ones that I call Scrivener go in one amendment yes/no question, and the rest and the more substantive questions are separated out so they can stand on their own. That's usually what we see.
Okay. Do you have some sample ballot measures that you've kind of collected over the years of, hey, here's kind of the language that lands on a ballot?
I can point you towards the cities that do. I stopped collecting them, but for example, Clearwater just had their charter go through on the 2018, and the way that they did their wording, they got a very nice compilation done, and I can point you towards that. I can point Carrie, if you'd rather. I'll just direct those examples through Carrie.
Send maybe some examples
Sure.
that help me to just kind of picture what we're aiming
Right.
for.
It's
Okay.
usually a yes/no situation. Shall Article 1 be amended to read old versus new? Yes, no.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can send some samples.
Excellent. Other questions, comments? Commissioner Greer.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Tipton, thank you for coming.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate that. You've done a fantastic job and your reputation is impeccable.
Well, thank you.
You gave us a kind of a breakdown of how many council members or commissioners were on a dais based on population. We get roughly an additional 10,000 people with our snowbirds, and then we're going to have some projected growth of another 5,000, 6,000 possible. Is there a way to get that projection based on the numbers of, say, 35,000 to 40 or 45,000?
Not only is that in the back of our book by population where we can compare those numbers, I can run you a like 30,000 to 50,000, and I'll send that to Carrie, and then she can share that with you.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
On Saturdays and Sundays, we get another. Any other questions, comments?
Yes,
Vice
just
Mayor?
keep in mind though, none of them can vote if
Yeah,
they're just
no.
your seasonals and your visitors. Yeah.
Well, we do. We have a fair amount that do. They stay here. They do homestead here. Some homestead here.
Some do
and-
homestead,
and then they
exactly.
visit.
Yep. But the weekend visitors don't vote usually, not here.
I'm not talking about them.
Yeah. Vice Mayor, any?
Again, it's always a pleasure to hear you speak. I mean, just a tremendous amount of information and history, and I certainly do appreciate that. And thank you again for coming over all this way, both of you for coming and helping us through this process.
Anything I can do as you get your committee appointed and get them ready to go, feel free, like I said, to share this PowerPoint with them or any of the other league materials if there's anything we can do to assist. And I'll close by saying good luck. I hope it's a great process, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Ms. Tipton, I
Hang
just.
on, I think we had one question. Sorry.
Yep, Jake?
Sorry, you always get one for me. Are there common threads or areas that come to mind for you over the years that are topics that are hot button, that need revising or viewing segments of the charter that people look at?
How the council is elected is probably the liveliest of conversations, because for people to understand the merits of true at-large comes up against those that were raised maybe in single-member district and have always felt that that's the only way to go. Trying to get not only the educational part done with that, but understanding the compromise that exists in what's called the seated council, and then weighing the pros and cons of those three. A lot of charter review committees will spend a month just there in meeting, okay? That's a tough topic for them because they want representation and they're not sure how to get it.
Thanks. Good example. Thank
I
you.
had actually one last one I noted and I forgot. It's a simple one.
Okay.
Effective date of changes. Is it typical that they're effective, the minute the voters vote, or can you?
Normally,
make
there's the opportunity for an additional legal review
Okay.
after the election process. So usually there's a 30 or a 60-day window for it to go into effect.
I've just always thought, and I'm not advocating for it by any stretch, but if you think about things like terms, if you're running for something and you don't know that term may be
That's
on the
normally
ballot?
built in, by the way. There are examples of those where they've had to specify that this will not go into effect until the conclusion of an upcoming term. And that charter language then reads that this is good through 2022
Right.
with the change going into effect in 2024 or
That's what
something like
that's
that.
what I was driving at.
Yes, and that's very carefully crafted, and the attorneys share all of this among themselves within their statewide association on how to get there.
Yeah, because it comes back to the whole, you don't ever want to vote yourself anything.
No.
You're voting for the future, so, yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, excellent. Thank you again very much for
You're
making
welcome.
the trip up here. It looks like you guys beat the rain getting out of here. Hopefully you have safe
And
travel.
hopefully made good use of your time. I
Oh,
hope
for sure.
I didn't run over. You
No,
guys are
you're-
still good.
You're
Okay.
excellent. We really, really appreciate it.
All
Thank
right.
you both. We
My
appreciate it.
pleasure. Thanks.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. We'll be back at 6:25 for the Board of Elections meeting.